So, we are up to Daf Yud Bet Amud Aleph, 12a 2, and our last class was a very short class. It was the class in Sotheby's that was supposed to be a long class, but we wound up getting a delayed start because of everyone turning up. Baruch Hashem, we had a beautiful time. Okay, so that is a short class. There's one bit from the class that I'd like to revisit, if that's okay. All right, because I think that the lesson is incredible. If you turn back just a little bit, the pasuk, the Gemara brought out this idea that at the bottom of 12a2, right? That why they asked Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, why did the Jewish people deserve to be destroyed? He said, well, what do you think? And they gave him an answer. What was their answer? Their answer was that the people of Shushan went to the party of Achashverosh. Yeah. Asked Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, he asked them back, he said, well, if that's the case, that's only the people of Shushan, not to everybody else. So why did everybody else deserve? So they asked him, okay, so you tell us. So he said, okay, I'll tell you. You know what the answer is? Because they bowed down to the statue of Nebuchadnezzar. There's a question as to why we didn't refer to Haman, why we refer to Nebuchadnezzar, and that we covered in the last class. However, but Rashi says that it's talking about the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, that they bowed down to the idol of Nebuchadnezzar, now they were being punished. Okay. The people asked him back, okay, if that's the case, so if they did deserve to die, and that was why the decree was drafted, so how come it didn't follow through on it? Anyway, the answer was, they only did it on the inside, right? They didn't really mean to, bow to make themselves subservient to the Avodah Zarah. They were being forced on pain of death to do this. So therefore, they did it. It was only on the outside. It wasn't really on the inside, and that's why Hakadosh Baruch Hu didn't punish them. They didn't wind up getting that penalty. But it's the last comment of the Gemara. Just one more sidebar before the last comment of the Gemara. The question is, what if someone has a situation where they're being asked on pain of death, are you Christian? Are you Muslim? So throughout the generations, many times you had Jewish people who were faced with that question. They could have lied. Yes, I'm Christian. But they chose not to because they held that was asur. Why? Because Avodah Zarah, or even anything connected with Avodah Zarah, is the halacha, is yehareg v'al ya'avor. You're not allowed to transgress and save your life. Only three. Which three? Adultery, and murder. Okay? However, this Christianity is considered Avodah Zarah. So therefore they held that you were not even allowed to say, I'm a Christian. Or accept, throughout the Inquisition, accept Christianity on yourself or we'll kill you, burn you at the stake. And they didn't. Why didn't they just say, okay, I did. I will, I accept. Yeshu, Hazaku Baruch. Right? Why didn't they do that? What's the answer? So this is actually very interesting. I want to draw two different comments, again, just as an interesting sidebar. There's a big machloket amongst the Rishonim. What is the status of Christianity vis-a-vis Avodah Zarah? Because who are you believing in if it's Christianity? Now, there's many different branches of Christianity. There's Catholicism, there's evangelical, there's Lutheran, there's there's Methodist, there's Mormonism, which is loosely based. There's so many, Greek Orthodox, Anglican. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And each one of them has a little bit of a different version. But by and large, what we're talking about is they believe in a Trinity, or they believe in either, again, specifically in a Trinity, or they believe in the fact that there's God and then there's Yeshu, and that Yeshu is the embodiment of God. But in either scenario, there is a power share between God and Yeshu in almost all versions of Christianity. What that means is, in the language of the Rishonim, that's called shituf. Shituf means literally a partnership. So you have, like the end of what's the title when you have a business when it's partners? LLP, right? There you go. So is that correct? What's LLP? Limited partnership, right? Okay, so that's literally maybe what they hold, Christianity, limited partnership. But, it's a combination of LLP. Shituf, is shituf Avodah Zarah or not? Machloket in the Rishonim. Some opinions say literally Avodah Zarah. Some opinions say, no, it's watered down Avodah Zarah. Okay? According to the opinion that's not Avodah Zarah, then you'd be allowed to say it. And in fact, if to save your life, someone asks you, are you Muslim? You'd be allowed to say, I am a Muslim.
There's no partnership in that.
Because in Islam, they don't believe that Muhammad was a god. He was just a prophet.
Yeah.
So that could be an erroneous belief, but that's not Avodah Zarah. Which is why, halachically, we hold you're allowed to go into a mosque so long as it's not during the time of prayer. So you're allowed to visit a mosque. How about a church? No, because it's a bet Avodah Zarah. That's what we hold, l'maaseh, that shituf is Avodah Zarah. Here's where it gets very interesting. Even the opinions that hold shituf is Avodah Zarah, there's opinions within that opinion that say that shituf is only Avodah Zarah for a Jew. It's not Avodah Zarah for a non-Jew, for a goy.
Because they're believing in God somewhat.
What? Interesting question.
Is there already Avodah Zarah?
Interesting question.
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares? Who
I'm not
cares?
following.
Why is this a relevant concept?
Sheva mitzvot.
There you go. Because a non-Jewish person is also obligated in Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach. That obligation doesn't come from Judaism. It precedes Judaism. So the mitzvot of B'nai Noach are 7. One of them is Avodah Zarah. So how do we define Avodah Zarah not within the confines of Torah law, but within the confines of B'nai Noach? And on that they say that's not Avodah Zarah, which is again a fascinating halachic
It's illogical to me.
conversation. Sorry?
It's illogical to me.
Why?
It's either Avodah Zarah or it's not.
Well,
What's the difference who the practicing person is?
well, the difference would be in how was the commandment given to believe in God.
How
so-
is the commandment given to Noah?
Can I give you an example? In the Luchot, where we're commanded about believing in God, there are 2 separate commandments. One commandment is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. The second commandment is Lo yeh lecha elokim acherim al panai, which means that assuming you only had the first verse, what would you hold if someone felt that there was a partnership between God and someone else?
You okay?
No problem. I am Hashem your God. No problem. I believe in you. That's the point. So in the Jewish religion, where we receive the Luchot, and all the other nations did not receive Luchot, so they're left with the most basic version of that commandment.
But what does it say? What are the? You say no Avodah Zarah in the laws of Noah, right?
Correct.
What does it say there?
So we don't have a set of Luchot.
How is that defined?
Lo yehiyeh.
It's defined as clearly as an Anochi, not as a Lo yeh lecha.
Oh.
That's what I'm explaining, you see? Now, what that means is that even in Bnei Noach, they would still be wrong practically, but they wouldn't be wrong halachically. Is that resonant? Now, what that means is, and this is such an interesting thing, because, okay, fine, so if I'm a Jew and I'm deciding what I think it is, who cares what he thinks it is according to his opinion? The answer is very, very interesting. What happens if a non-Jew does something that we have halachot regarding what the halacha is regarding something that was used for Avodah Zarah? So if it was used for Avodah Zarah for me, right, for me, then it uses my definition. But if a non-Jew used something that according to their own definition for Bnei Noach is not Avodah Zarah, then it would not carry the halachot of something that was used for Avodah Zarah in their own experience. So there's many, many different interesting cases that come out of this, but I just wanted to drive this home with regards to this question. And we mentioned as well that was one of the things that happened with Shabtai Tzvi, that at the end, the Sultan of Constantinople said to him, the Ottoman Empire, he said to him, either declare that you're a Muslim, you believe you're a Muslim, or I'm going to kill you. And he wound up saying publicly, I'm a Muslim. And then he wound up giving him a non-Jewish Muslim woman to marry. It was wild what was going on at the time. It's fascinating.
He was the fake prophet, right?
Fake Messiah. Fascinating time in history to read about. Incredible tragedy. And the reverberations from that were felt for a very long time. In fact, most opinions say that the reason why on Friday night Syrian Jews don't have the minhag to say all of Lecha Dodi, we skip about half of the stanzas.
Mm-hmm.
Which stanzas are we skipping? All the stanzas that mention Mashiach.
Wow. Because this guy?
Lo tevosh, lo tikayim, right? Right? So in the aftermath of the fake Messiah, sorry?
I don't even know those.
You don't even know those. So I'll give you the point.
When we were kids, they were in the books.
Let me give you an example. The Lecha Dodi was written by Rav Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz. And where do you see that? Shamor v'zachor, Mikdash Melech, right? Likrat Shabbat, Mikdash Melech, Hitoreri. Then, what do we not say? Halevi, Hitnaari, we skip. Lo Tevoshi, we skip. Vehayu, we skip. Right? So, and then the last one, Yaminu small. So all of those parts of his names, but in the Syrian thing, is just cut out. So that whole thing of that acrostic that is now eliminated is because there was such a damage to the Jewish psyche at that point in time from Shabtai Tzvi that the people it was too much. They just pushed all the Mashiach talk away because it brought people to tremendous sadness. Okay, let's move on.
Didn't
Okay,
Rambam fake that he accepted to be a Muslim at one point?
not that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
but maybe.
Because it's either that or he died, and then that's why he left and moved to Morocco, and from there he moved to.
It's possible, but what we just said now, according
Did
to
he violate by?
no, according to what we just said now, Islam is different than Christianity. So Islam would not be that problem, right? Now the question arises in halakha: if you're in a time of shmad, which means a time where they're forcing a religion on you, then for any mitzvah in the Torah, we give our life. So they tell you, don't do this small mitzvah. And the Gemara goes even further in Sanhedrin and says, afilu arkisa de misana. Even if they tell you, the Jews used to wear one color shoelaces and the non-Jews another. If they tell you, switch your shoelaces, no mitzvah in Torah, not midoraita, not midrabanan, even just switch your shoelaces, that was enough, give your life.
But why? It's not a mitzvah.
It was an identifying feature of being a Jew. And in a
Admitting
time
you're a Jew.
when they're trying to beat the Jew out of the Jew, so anything and everything is of the utmost importance. Okay? And what it made me think about is that, you see these Hasidim, these guys, long coats, fur hats. Why they dress like that? Because that was the clothing they wore in Russia in the flipping middle of winter. Okay, so now you're living in Israel, in Bnei Brak, it's 900 degrees. Why do you have to wear that? It's no mitzvah. The answer is that they feel that there's a campaign in the world to eradicate God and eradicate religion. So that Gemara that says, even to change your shoelaces, asur, that's how they feel.
Don't assimilate.
They wear like it's such a danger what's going on around us, and it's such a focus of the world to eradicate religion, eradicate mitzvot, eradicate kedusha, that the long high knee socks that they're still wearing now because you can't change a thing. All right, let's move on. Gemara continues. The Gemara says, so at the bottom of A2, I'm just taking us through the last line of Gemara because I think there's an incredible lesson that needs to be learned. Gemara says, what do you mean? So why didn't they? Well, how come The answer is that they didn't mean to do it. They were honest. There was gun to their head, and therefore they bowed down. Now, like I said earlier, you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it. But if the person did it, you're not allowed to save your life by transgressing the sin, with the big three. But what if you did? Under duress. The halacha is we don't give you the death penalty. You're considered honest. Okay? Now, the Gemara answers, Asa, imahen, HaKadosh Baruch Hu also did with them, ela lefanim, on the inside versus the outside. They sinned by saying something that wasn't true. Hashem also set them up with something that wasn't true. That it didn't prove to be true, which was a threat of annihilation, which never came to fruition. Okay? Now, I learned in this something, just wild. Right? I learned from this Gemara something wild. You know what to me, this Gemara is screaming from the rooftops? When a person experiences in their life a tremendous difficulty, but the difficulty is not physical. It's not actual. It's mental. Tremendous stress or anxiety over something that proves to not actually didn't happen. So the person is looking and thinking to themselves, why am I going through this? We learn from this Gemara that when God punishes midah keneged midah, it's not only you did it with your foot, I'm going to hit your foot. It's also if you did it surface level, I'm also going to do it with you surface level. So if he's trying to do a connect the dot to figure out what he needs to fix, he can also look and retrofit the surface level tension he's experiencing to a surface level transgression that he's being over. I'm also doing something which I don't really want to do inside, but I'm forced to do for whatever external reason. And we're learning that from this Gemara, which I thought was a very important practical lesson for us to learn. And so the Gemara continues. Okay, we mentioned yesterday already, Tuesday, Chatzar Ginat Bitan HaMelech, two opinions between Rav and Shmuel, whether the party was 1, 2, and 3 levels of importance, or it was in the Chatzar, and then there was portals, 2 exits that they could go visit the rest of it after they had their dinner. They could go for a dinner and a show. Gemara continues, Chur Karpas Utchelet. It describes all the various things that were there at this incredible party. And what were these tapestries that were there? Chur, Karpas, Utchelet. Now, by the way, already we're seeing now the Persian proclivity towards hanging carpets. Right? It's the Persian kingdom. And it's a Persian thing, by the way. They don't put only rugs on the floor. They hang rugs on the wall. Like art, right? No, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. They hang rugs on the wall. Obviously, the more modern ones probably have stopped doing this. But sorry, they don't hang it there. I guess they're more modern art. But this is a Persian thing that they have. They hang it on the wall as well. Okay, so chur karpas utchelet. We see that there's hanging these tapestries of chur karpas and tchelet. Gemara takes them apart one by one by one. Tchelet, we know, is blue. We already have in the Torah. What's chur and karpas? As far as I know, karpas is the night of the seder. The Gemara says, Rav Amar Hari Hari. What does it mean? Har means a hole, like chor. So chur means a woven tapestry that has many holes in it, because as you weave it, it now has a hole. So it's not like a material like this, which is solid. Rather, it has many holes, and since it's got all these holes, it would indicate that each one of those holes was an act of sewing, illustrating the great handmade craftsmanship that was involved in making them. No, Shmuel says he hung instead white wool behind on these tapestries, and the white wool was what he put out for them. Now, if you remember, last time we discussed, one of the things that we asked was, why is it that we're paying such close attention to where he held this party, in this room, in that room? Who cares? Mordechai Esther felt the need to tell us, the details of the party. Call Norma, tell her directly. What are we telling? What's going on over here? And I explained yesterday, I explained on Tuesday that Chatzar Ginat Bitan was a mimicry. Remember, he's using the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash. Chatzar Ginat Bitan represents the 3 areas of the Beit HaMikdash. So he was almost making a mockery, not only with the vessels, but also with the Chatzar, like in the Chatzer, the Ginat, the inside sanctuary, and then the Bitan, which is the Kodesh HaKodashim. Okay? So now we're coming back to this. We again experience this idea. What are these hanging tapestries? If you come to the Mishkan, what do you see? What's the first thing you see? The parochet. So we have the hanging tapestries in the Beit HaMikdash, in the parochet in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Masach, in the Mishkan. So he was trying to illustrate that. Says Shmuel, so what are these tapestries? Rav describes chori, woven tapestries, which was the tapestries of the Masach of the Mishkan. Shmuel says, no, milat chivar, which is a white tapestry. Where do we have white wool?
The shemet, the worm that cuts the.
That's the worm that cuts it. Where do we have white wool?
But they cover it in the wool and put it in a lead
linen and wool.
canister when it's not being used. That's how they protect. That's how they.
Okay, so that's one usage, but that's not something that's an accoutrement of the Beit HaMikdash.
The Kohen's clothing?
No, that's white linen.
No wool also, because I thought that's what you can't wear.
No, that's only the tzitzit. Where do we have white wool? This is crazy.
The red one that becomes
Excellent. On Yom Kippur, the Jewish people, they had a red string, and by the end of the red string, what would happen? If the teshuvah was accepted, what would happen? They would have, the string would turn white. It was a string made out of wool. Think of the mockery. Chatzar, ginat, bitan, and now Shmuel says he's hanging white wool on the walls to illustrate to them, this is the highest point. Your Yom Kippur, you're the Kodesh HaKodeshim Bitan, and again, using that same theme, we understand.
Some Haaretz that knew all of this to do this?
Yes, absolutely. Why did they know? Remember, we already discussed, they're making all their decisions on the calculations of the year on a pasuk. Two different pasukim, like they're being doresh the pasuk. Why? Because remember, this is not like they're sitting learning a Gemara in the library. This is a very short period of time after the destruction of the temple. And not only that, after the destruction of the person that made a mockery of the destruction of the temple, Belshazzar, right? So we're not very far away. Remember, how far was the estimation of the 70 years of Belshazzar to the estimation of the 70 years to Achashverosh? No. 7. He thinks it's here. Achashverosh says, no, you're wrong. It's another 7 years from the beginning of the conquest to the exile. Achashverosh is wrong by another 11 years, which takes us to the end of the story in the Megillah, okay? To after he loses his power. So it's only 7 years, right, from when this remarkable miracle story happened, the writing on the wall, where Belshazzar is punished for making this party. So they were obsessed. And not only that, they probably had in their possession, right? If they had in their possession all the vessels, they probably also had the white wool string, all the things that they pillaged.
They probably had capos also.
What do you mean?
People who told them, this is what this means.
Yeah, right. People that were snitching, Yani. All right, maybe.
this red wool thread was the wool that Yehuda gave it to Tamar, and it became a flag for Am Israel. And they came to, that's what I heard, that when they came to spy the land, they gave it to Rachav.
To Rachav, okay.
To see when they come and destroy it, you show this thread, and they see that you are part of us, and they're not going to destroy you.
Right.
And this was carrying out that this is the flag of Am Israel, that we are Yehudi from that he didn't.
And that, who says that that's where they got the string in the Beit HaMikdash from, though? Is that also brought?
It came. They say that this is one part.
You mean where the idea of the red string comes from?
Because
that I've seen, yes.
Yeah, because this is the flag of us.
But I'm asking, do we know that the string in the Beit HaMikdash actually came from that flag, like was pulled out of that flag?
No, it was all. I mean, that's one of. I heard from Rabbi Yoshio Pinto that was the thing from Yehuda.
I have to take a look. I never heard that. That's fascinating.
I heard it
Okay.
from his
I love that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense also, and there's a lot of symmetry in those stories. But let's carry on. Okay, beautiful. Says the Gemara, Karpas. Okay, so what's Karpas? Amar Rabbi Yosef Hanina. Rabbi Yosef Hanina says, Karim shel pasim. Karim means pillows. Pasim means fine wool. Now, this is very interesting. Ketonet pasim. We already saw this. Most people translate ketonet pasim as a coat of many colors. Here we're seeing ketonet pasim. Pasim means a coat of wool. So this kind of ruins a little bit the Joseph and the Technicolor dream coat. It's just a wool coat. So basically any suit. He bought him a suit. Okay, Hazak Baruch. But there's one other opinion in terms of the word of pasim, where pasim means stripes. Okay? So the pillows that we're talking about over here were striped pillows. That's another understanding of what Rabbi Yossi Bar Hanina was saying. So I was thinking to myself, okay, what's the connection between stripes of the Beit HaMikdash? Or if it's wool, okay, it's not that extraordinary. Then why would the pasuk have to tell it to us that these pillows were made out of wool? Okay, now what?
The flags of each tribe had different.
So I don't know. The only thing that I'll say is that Karim Shel Pasim, if it means that they were striped, like I said, then it was hearkening back to the coat of Yosef, the destruction of the temples because of Sinat Chinam, which is the hatred of brothers. So sitting on the pillows of Pasim was a slap in the face to the Jews that had the destruction of the temple based on the hatred that was going all the way back to that coat, the striped coats of Yosef. Al gilile kesef ve'amud shesh mitot zahav kesef. Says the pasuk, they were lying down. Sorry, these things were hanging on rods of silver, and then they had these pillars that were made out of marble holding up these tapestries, and the beds, right? Mitot zahav kesef. The beds were made out of gold and silver. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer haraui lekesef kesef, haraui lezahav zahav. The guy that deserved to be seated on a silver bed, he gets a silver bed. The guy, the Zahav, got the Zahav bed. It's not like the Pesach program that you could bribe the guy at the pool for the chair. Here, you got based on what you were worthy of. Amalo imken Rabbi Nechemia said back to Rabbi Yehuda, no, can't be. Imken ata metil kinah b'seudah. You're telling me that you're bringing jealousy into the seudah of Achashverosh. Can't be. Everyone would have gotten jealous. Elahem shel kesef, v'raglehem shel zahav. What does it mean, mitot zahav v'chesef? That the bed itself was gold and silver. The top of the bed was silver. The legs of the bed were gold. Okay? Now, it's just an interesting thing over here. What does that mean? Like, how could it be there was jealousy in the party of Achashverosh? Probably wasn't the only sin that was going on over there. Jealousy at the party.
The least of the.
Least of your worries. What is the ukina? The Gemara is saying that Rabbi Nechemia is pointing out to Rabbi Yehuda, your interpretation of mitot zahav v'chesef doesn't make sense. You know why it doesn't make sense? Because if Achashverosh is trying to coalesce the people for his favor, to love him and to be connected to him, he's not going to do something at the party that will create friction between the people. The last thing in the world he wants is people fighting at his party.
So if he's inviting all these Jews, then why is he making fun of them from the Bet HaMikdash time?
So it's important to understand, there's a very big difference between making fun and intimidation. He was saying, give up your dream of redemption. This is your home now, you're going nowhere.
But isn't the simple explanation that he sat people in different areas, like kings would see someone in a particular court.
Yeah.
You're closer to the king, you're more important. If you're in the hallway on the stairs, less important.
So we already had this idea previously that when we talked about the three areas, that people were sat according to their. So the commentators say that there you don't ask a question of jealousy because the people didn't see each other. It wasn't in your face that someone was in a better seat than you. Here, you're sitting next to the Aige. I got gold, you got silver. Why'd you get gold? Why'd you get silver? Right? So here, it was proximally a problem. Another shot that they say is that the beds, it was either that you got a good bed in a bad place, or you got a good spot with a bad bed. So everybody had something that equated everybody. But you have to realize that what Morris asked is that lots of kings do that. Why was Achashverosh, why would he have been worried to do the kinah? The answer is not. Most kings are not completely suffering from an inferiority complex like Achashverosh is. Achashverosh feels like I married the royal Vashti, that's why I'm here. So he feels like no one respects me. No one loves me. So he's very, very, very conscious and conscientious about making sure that the people are on his side. Because he can be easily cast aside. Again, this idea, the whole party of 180 days, the idea of making the Seudah have kosher food for the Jews. Who does that? The answer is he wanted all of his subjects to be there. And that's also why the Gemara goes into the psychology of, did he invite the outside people first, or did he invite the inside people? If he did it that way, does that make him a foolish king or a wise king? Because we know Achashverosh was so paranoid about his position. So much so that one dream of Haman is already enough to send him into this, paranoid panic where he thinks Haman's trying to kill him, his best friend. Right? Okay, let's move on. Gemara continues. Bahat Vashesh, right? Vedar v'sochar, says the pasuk. Right? Al ritzepat bahat Vashesh vedar v'sochar. All of this, these couches that we talked about of gold and silver, what did they rest upon? on floors of Bahat Vashesh. Bahat Vashesh Vidar V'Socharet. What are these four descriptive terminologies? Hamarav Asi, Avanim Shemitchotetot al Ba'alehem. The word Bahat is the same word. Hey and Chet are often interchangeable, okay? So Bachat is mitchotetot, right? What does it mean? That people were searching. Lechatet means to rummage. So people rummage trying to find these super expensive stones. They try and find, but it's very difficult to get your hands on. So Bahat Vashesh means that people were feeling around trying to find these kind of precious stones that were lining the floors of the party. And so does it say, Avne Nezer, right? The stones that fit into the crown jewels, that fit into a crown, mitnosesot al admato, that they are, people have to go through many nisyonot, many challenges, al admato, on the land in order to be able to get them. So you see the idea that precious stones are called something that a person struggles to be able to get, okay? So these stones, what were they? How were they sat in the ground? Were they just lying on the floor? Gemara says, Vidar v'socharet. They were Rav Amar. Rav says, Dare. They were rows and rows and rows. So they lined up the stones in rows on the floor, and then v'socharet, they went around them. What's it called? With a border, if you will.
How do they know this?
Sorry?
How do they know this?
How does who know what?
How do these rabbis know how these things were laid out?
Because they're being doresh, the pasuk of vidar. So he's translating. What does the word vidar mean? So we don't have a stone called dar. So dar means it dwells. So when a stone is dwelling, it means it's in a setting. Okay? Now, obviously, it doesn't mean like it was in a ring, but how would you have a stone in a setting on a floor? The answer is the stones were laid in the floor. Now, you know what's crazy? I remember the first time reading this Gemara, I was like, holy cow, what is this party? Yeah. Until you see what goes on in the Middle East. In places like Dubai, where the extravagance, the opulence is so gaudy, it's so above and beyond and unnecessary, it actually starts to have a lack of class. So imagine you went to a place and the floor was gold with silver and diamonds. It wouldn't be beautiful to you. But you understand that they're not trying to be beautiful. They're trying to show you, I have more money than you.
They're being opulent.
And I'll spend it in every way, in every place. Like, it would be entirely logical in Dubai that instead of having a black metal painted traffic light, that the traffic light should be made out of solid gold. Okay. Why? Right? Why are they doing that?
Your hadith.
Exactly. But the irony is, it doesn't show. No one looks at that and says hadith. Everyone looks at that and says hazit. Right?
All the people in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, or whatever, they look at it, wow, this is the royal family.
So for the locals, it works well.
Yeah.
For foreigners, I think it's kind of a little bit of a, you're walking the street, the guy's walking his pet leopard. Hazaku Baruch, it costs a lot of money. Is that something that anyone ever wanted to do for themselves? Hazaku Baruch.
I was watching Scarface yesterday.
Okay. Let's move on from Ketone Basim. Now, it's ironic because they said about the Ketone Pasim that it was torn apart by a wild animal. Yeah. Way! See how everything fits together. Okay, so Rav says that this is what the floor. This is the inlay of the floor. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, Even Tova. There was a precious stone. Yesh b'krachei hayam. You could find in the cities on the ocean. Vidar Shema. The name of the stone is Vidar. So you asked, how did Rav know? How did Shmuel know? The answer is they were translating in ancient Aramaic, right? What dar would have meant. One rabbi said, I heard of a stone called Dara. Maybe that's what it's talking about. And Rav said the other way. Vidar Shema. Hoshiva be'emtza seuda. They put these precious, huge stones in the middle of the feast. They would put it in the sunlight, and the sunlight would refract across, this large, surface of these precious stones, and it would shine kisauraim, like the like they were hatzot in the middle of the day. And then in the nighttime, they would put it next to the torches, and the fires would be reflected in the heart of these precious stones. Now, where is he learning this from? Because the pasuk says vidar v'socharet. Like I just told you before, the chet and the hey could be interchangeable. So they learned the word socharet to say v'soharet. Soharet means to shine bright. Okay? Right? Sohar. Now what's interesting is we have a cross-pollination here. Can anyone tell me what I'm thinking about?
You used the
I just
hay
told you
above to turn
that
into a
yes,
chet, and here
okay,
you use a
yes,
hay
we did,
of a chet.
we did. That's not what I mean, but yes, well observed.
I'm sorry, say it. Can you repeat?
There's a cross-pollinated experience that we're having right now. Shmuel says that the word here, Vidar v'socharet, refers to the stone called Dara, and the word Socharet is really telling you Sahara from the word Sahar, and that means that there was a precious stone that reflected the light of the sun or of the fire, and that brought them light.
Okay.
The pasuk says by Noach in the Teva, Sohar taseh la Teva. What does it mean, Sohar? One opinion says a window, the other opinion says a precious stone. And what was the point of the precious stone? To bring light to the Teva. The word Sohar and the word Sahara, especially when it's referring to a light, a stone that's brought for light, is a beautiful cross-reference point to be able to see in these two places. What would I tell you? The opinion that translates Sahara over here to mean a precious stone is Shmuel. In the pasuk in Noach, there's two opinions about what Sohar means. One opinion is it's a precious stone. Who do you think that opinion is? Shmuel. The other opinion says, no, it doesn't mean this precious stone. What does it mean? A window. That's Rav from Al Gemara. That does not translate Sahara to mean a precious stone that shines, that lights up like the daytime. Okay. Carrying on. The Gemara says, Debe Rabbi Ishmael Tana. In the yeshiva of Rabbi Ishmael, they taught, Shekara deror lechol ba'ale sechora. What does it mean, Vidar v'socharet? Dar means that it comes from the word deror. What does deror mean? Deror means a present or a freedom. Okay, v'karatim deror lechol yoshvea. We just had it in Parashat Behar. When you call freedom to the people at the end of Shemitah or Yovel, you will call deror freedom lechol yoshvea to all those that sit there. So they did deror, which means freedom, socharet from the word schora, which means those that sell. They had any merchants that had to pay a certain amount of money to the government, they were given an amnesty and they were given freedom from those sales tax for the sake of the party of Achashverosh. And remember, this fits in with what we said earlier, that Achashverosh was desperate to get people to love him, to accept his kingdom. So therefore, he made sure to eliminate the thing that people hate the most, which is taxes. Okay. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.